What's going on, guys? Full Steer, and I'm back with another video. In today's video, I'll be doing an in-depth Elise jungle guide. Elise at the moment is pretty much the strongest, if not one of the strongest AP junglers. She's very good at ganking, like turret diving, ganking, early game pressure. Also good at doing dragons, is able to solo barons even. So the champion in general is really solid. Only downside she has, she kind of clears her jungle a little bit slow, so doing like Croc Camp and Raptor Camp is going to be a little bit more troublesome. Which, yeah, it's not that bad really. You can try to pressure the enemy jungle in for the other camps either way. You will most likely win 1v1s because of your stun and just the way your abilities work. It's very HP percent damage heavy, so anything will really die. Doesn't matter if it's a tank or if it's a squishy. And yeah, overall, I'd highly recommend playing Elise. She is quite easy to climb with, even though she isn't really that good into scaling into the late game. But usually, if you play it properly, have a good game plan, then you will be able to get through the early game with such a lead that it shouldn't really matter. Now, that being said, let's get right into the runes. Now, the runes for Elise are pretty straightforward. It's Electrocute with Cheap Shot. You might think, why Cheap Shot? Well, you are gonna impair the movement of people quite easily. This is gonna help you burst. The moment you stun something, Cheap Shot kicks in. Also, if you have red buff, Cheap Shot works with that as well. So this is a very good amount of extra damage you're gonna get from this. It's gonna help you just in bursting as well. Now, the reason I see some Elises going for sudden impact, and the reason why this isn't good is the only way this is really going to work is after your Q from your spider form. So the human form abilities kind of don't apply to this, so you're only really going to get the extra damage from maybe your human W with your Q from spider form, and that's not an ideal combo. This is a 4-second cooldown, so this will add up to quite a lot of damage in a general game. Now here, this depends on your elo. You want to get either Zombie Ward or Eyeball Collection. Lower elos is Eyeball Collection just because people don't ward, really, so getting a Zombie Ward really doesn't do anything for you. If people start warding, then you definitely want to get Zombie Ward just because it helps you with vision, and that's just ideal, really. So I'd say lower elo is probably below, realistically, probably below Diamond 1-ish. Maybe just Diamond in general. If you are below Diamond, get Eyeball Collection, but I don't really see people warding that much either below Diamond 1, so I think I would personally go Eyeball Collection up to Diamond 1. And then as soon as I get to the Diamond 1 Master type of games, or just higher in general, then I would go Zombie Ward, because people will definitely place more wards. Now for this one, it's pretty straightforward. You just want to go Relentless Hunter. The reason you want to get this is because of the fact that it gives you so much move speed, which gives you the ability to roam the map a lot faster. Now, having this rune pretty much means you don't have to go like mobilities for the same type of thing. You can go for Sorks, which gives you more damage, and it's overall a good thing, like you're gonna be running around the map at a rapid speed. And the other ones, I mean, Ravenous Hunter could give you a nice amount of extra healing, but apart from that, it's really not that beneficial. So, in general, more move speed across the map means more pressure, and pressure from Elise is scary. So that's the main page. Now the secondary page is also really like straightforward. You want to get the Nimbus Cloak, and then the water walking ability. Now water walking here is again for the same concept. You're going to be able to roam the map faster running through the river at 25 extra move speed, which means you can get to, like, you get in position to gank faster. You have the advantage in fighting people in the river because of the extra adaptive damage, also the extra move speed. And so this is going to be very good for counter ganking, or just getting into position for ganks, and also fighting people over scuttles and dragons / barons. So this is over in general just the rune you want to get. And then Nimbus Cloak is just so, I mean, if you, no matter what smite you go on Elise, you can go either or. Nimbus Cloak is going to help you in just having a lot of extra move speed to catch people. So let's say you were to blue smite somebody, they're going to be slowed, you're going to be sped up, you're going to get in closer, which makes it easier for you to land your cocoon, since it's harder for them to dodge it from a close range. And then the cocoon into a full burst rotation will most likely get the kill on the enemy anyway, because Elise does kind of one-shot people with a full rotation. So this is really ideal, it works really well with smite, and yeah, it's just very solid. Now for the runes, to go with this, you want to get the attack speed here, and then 1 adaptive force, and then whatever armor or magic resist fits into the enemy jungler or just the enemy team in general. If the enemy team has AP heavy, then you want to get the magic resist. You might even get double magic resist if they're really that AP heavy, just because it's that worth it at that point. Same goes for full AD comps. If they're full AD, you might want to get double armor. But usually it's just whatever is good against the enemy jungler, because you're most likely going to be facing him quite a bit. So yeah, it's pretty straightforward there. These runes aren't that varied, though. If you guys have questions on them, make sure to put those in the comments below. And yeah, let's get right into the item build now. Okay, now for the item section, it's like a kind of a straightforward build. It has a lot of variation, though. You want to definitely start with the Hunter's Machete. On Elise, this is going to be giving you the fastest clear speed, so you definitely want to go for this. The reason for this is with your spider form and your increase in attack speed, you're going to be able to shred through camps a lot quicker. You definitely want to be doing your camps as fast as possible. Since you want to look for early ganks, you want to look for pressure on the map, maybe even invade the enemy jungler if you can. So doing a fast clear from maybe blue, Gromp into red buff hits you level 3, you could look for a gank. You might be able to do wolves in between, for example, but yeah, this item right here is going to give you the fastest clear speed for that. You're going to be finishing a blue Gromp wolves red buff clear at about 2 minutes 50, which is pretty quick. If you don't do wolves, it's going to be a lot quicker though, but yeah, for that reason, just get this. It's the fastest one. Now to follow this up, you can get either the blue or the red smite. Usually into squishier teams or teams with higher mobility, I get the blue smite. If the enemy team has like a bunch of tanks or heavy HP, like just something that survives a lot easier or isn't that mobile, you can get red smite, because it's just at that point you don't really need the extra mobility. You also have Nimbus Cloak, so you still have the speed up, but you don't have to slow down. But then the Skirmisher Saber is gonna overall do more damage to tanks or to like just people that are tankier in the enemy team. And yeah, that's the difference there. So against tankier stuff, get Skirmisher Saber. Squishy stuff that you can one shot, you would definitely want to get this, or high mobility stuff so you can slow them down and get your cocoon to land easier. Now both of these are going to be upgraded into the Runic Echoes because, well, it's by far the best one on Elise. I'm sure you can imagine why. And yeah, so boots, you have options. You can go mobility boots, which I would have recommended a while ago before the Relentless Hunter rune, but with Relentless Hunter, with the extra move speed from that, you don't really need boots of mobility. You can just go with the Relentless Hunter, which is what I do, and then I just don't use these. I use mostly Sorks because of the magic penetration. Elise's damage is very HP based, so if you have more magic pen, you're going to be able to kind of destroy people with the base damage Elise has. It's very high, so just this is going to be very, very good. You can also get ninjas or mercs if you want. It's going to make you a little bit more tanky, which is a viable strategy, but in general I would recommend going for Sorks just because of your base damage. So yeah. Now to follow this up, Elise has a lot of possible items. In most games they are going to look very, very similar, or the way you want to build your items, the way you want to set up your build. Now staple items in Elise's build are going to be Morello. It's a very I'm just going to put it here. It's a very staple item there. You have the Liandries, you have Rylai's, Voidstaff, Zonias. You can even get a Death Cap. Banshees is a viable strategy as well. There's a lot of options. Now there is also a funky build where you can focus the attack speed from Elise, so you can get in close, get like a Nashor's Tooth Gwynsu setup going, which I wouldn't recommend, even though it's very good at like doing like objectives, like a Baron, for example. There's also a strategy to it, which I will explain later, where you can solo Baron with like just the Liandries, really. You don't really need anything else. And yeah, so I wouldn't really recommend going for an attack speed build. It's a fun build to play with if you want, but in general, yeah, not necessary. And you can also get a Magi's on Elise, which can translate from this, of course. I think this is pretty much the items. Now, the way you want to use this, or like think about what you want to build, is very dependent on the enemy team. Now, let's say they have a lot of healing, just whatever healing you can imagine, really, like a Darius top lane, a Cassio mid lane, which heals quite a bit. Then you have like ADCs that heal, or maybe a Kayn jungle, or whatever you're facing. Then a Morello becomes a very, very solid item because you want to get that Grievous Wounds. To be able to heal reduce the enemy team, so this is going to be very, very good there. Also gives you a lot of extra magic penetration, which with Elise or base damage is going to go up, But if they don't really have any like massive healings that require grievous wounds, then Morello doesn't really become a great item for you to pick up. It's really the situation whether they have that or not. In most games, I will rush a Liandry's on Elise, because in most games that I'm doing well, okay to good in. Like, I don't want to do games where I'm not getting my ganks off and getting a little bit behind. I don't want to be getting Liandry's, because it's too much of a gold investment for like more towards the damage region. Now, Liandry's is a very, very, very good item on Elise, because it procs on your spiderlings, so it procs fast and a lot of times, which is a very, very high damage output. Also, this is going to allow you to do Barons quite easily, especially if you were to combine Liandry's with Rylai's. This is an option. It's usually only a good option if you're really snowballing. Like, if you are getting the kills, like really getting those kills, and you have to like carry yourself really. So let's say you're like 10-0 at like how fast, whatever, 12 minutes in game or something. Those types of games where you're really going for it, then this setup will work very well, because it's gonna do so much damage. Now, the reason you don't want to get this like every single game is because of the fact that if you're not that far ahead, you need to think about surviving certain team fights, or just being able to like stall out the enemy team if they're trying to kill you. So usually in games that I'm doing more okay in than actually heavily just snowballing, I'll pick up a Zonias, which is going to give me the effect from this. Also, the extra armor is nice, but the effect combined with your repel is going to make sure that you pretty much just stall somebody out for so long that you're probably not going to die afterwards anyway, unless your team really loses the fight. So this is a very standard setup that I would go for, this right here. If I'm doing okay, like if I'm doing good, I'll probably go for this. If I'm doing really snowballing, I'll get a Rylai's, and then probably still get a Zonias, but I would probably, my finished build would look something like this. So you can go for this setup right here, pick up a Void Staff, and then a Zonias to still be able to stall the enemy team out. Now, in some situations, you can also switch to Zonias for a Banshees if you need the shield for something, but usually Zonias is just a better bet, so you can stall people out a lot longer. This setup right here does an incredible amount of damage. This also pretty much means that with the Baron, you're going to be able to destroy that in seconds. Like, it's going to be gone really, really quickly because of the combination for this, and then your Spiderlings that proc it. So the solo Baron strategy with this setup, for example, is just incredible. Like, that's really fast. But this is a very snowball heavy setup, and I wouldn't really go this unless I'm doing very well in the game. Now, if you're not doing too great in a game, you definitely want to skip going for Rylai's. You want to go more of a utility-based style to help your team out at that point. So what I would do then is, let's say they have healing reduction, I could go for Morello. Usually, if I'm not doing great, I would rush a Zonias, because that means that I can stall fights and not actually end. You know what I'm saying? So I would die less. Also stall out fights where people try to focus me more, so my team can get more damage on them as well. So usually I would go for something like Zonias into maybe a Rylai's to be able to slow down the enemy with like my abilities, so I can send in the spider, slow them, give utility for my team. Now, this might still be able to transition into a very like damage heavy setup if you want. So let's say you were not doing so great in the early game, get a Zonias, you then build into a Rylai's to provide utility for your team, so provide the slowing effect and all that. If then you start picking up and getting more kills in team fights, or just even getting more assists at that point, you can still transition this into going for Liandry's at that point, and then finishing off with these the Void Staff, or maybe even a Death Cap if they really don't have that much magic resist. You can still end up going for a heavy damage setup, so that's a very interesting thing that you should think about. You can have a bad early game, bad start, but then your team is going to be able to carry you through team fights by you just applying utility, peeling, getting stuns on people that try to dive the person that's actually doing well on your team. And from that you can still get gold and then build into this damage setup as well, which is a very viable strategy as well. Now, other things you can do, obviously Death Cap is a very good option if you're going for a very heavy damage setup. Now, usually the situations I would pick up Death Cap could be like this build setup right here. So you would go Liandry's, which is usually what I go as my first item. Then you get Zonias into maybe a Void Staff Death Cap setup. This doesn't have the Rylai's effect. Usually I would go for this setup into a more squishy team if the enemy team is a lot tankier, so they have more HP based champions. then the build setup would look different, because then I would still go for Rylai's over a death cap, because my ability power amount doesn't necessarily matter too much at that point. You are gonna have more damage output from Rylai's Liandry's combination to burn through tanks, really. So that would be an option there, but usually into squishier teams, you go for something like this as a full build. And then, yeah. Now, another thing you can do early game is pick up maybe a Dark Seal before you even finish your Runic Echoes, or just after you finish it. And if you're really snowballing, then you can go for the Magi's upgrade, because this gives you 10% move speed, which is the key thing. It's not so much about getting those max stacks on your Magi's, it's more so the 10% move speed that you would gain from it if you're doing well in the early game. Because gaining 10% move speed on Elise in combination with Relentless Hunter is going to give you so much roam power that it just does a lot. So that's definitely something you want to think about if you're really doing well. You can pick up the Dark Seal in most games either way, because it's only 350 gold. So if you don't have the money, for example, to finish your Runic Echoes, you can just get a Dark Seal on maybe a first back or a second back or whatever. And then if you're doing well and have 10 stacks on that Dark Seal, you could upgrade that into a Magi's, get the instant 10% move speed off that, and then this could scale through to give you a lot more ability power if you get more kills and assists. Usually, if you get to the stage of Magi's being at good amount of stacks, you are going to be able to stack this up and keep it at max stacks for a while, because it's pretty hard to kill an Elise if you play your cards correctly and you actually peel back, don't just dive into the enemy team straight up. So you're going to be able to keep your Magi's for a long time, and this is going to just give you a lot of ability power to snowball the game with. So yeah, that's pretty much the build for Elise. If you guys have questions on this, put those in the comments below. If you guys have enjoyed this video so far, please make sure to hit the thumbs up button, helps a lot. And yeah, let's get right into the gameplay section now. Alright, welcome to the gameplay section of this guide. As you can see, I am playing Elise into a Diana, which honestly is a like so-and-so matchup. It can go either way. It's purely based on if I can get enough ganks off, then I'll probably just snowball the game out of control. And if Diana can, like, or if my ganks fail, I'd say, or she gets a little bit of a lead on me somehow, maybe by a good counter gank or something like that, then she will win because she outskills me. Now, a few things that you do want to remember when playing an early game champion like Elise is you have to, absolutely have to come into the game with a good plan, like a solid approach to what you want to be doing. Like lanes, look at the lanes, look at what's snowballing. So I'll just do that right now. So let's go for top lane. It's a Nocturne on our team against a Darius on the enemy team. Now in that lane matchup specifically, Nocturne has the upper hand from level 3 onwards. And it's also a very volatile and snowball heavy matchup. So for this game, that matchup is something I could easily gank, because Darius also doesn't have teleport, so every single gank is going to be very impactful. He's going to have to walk back to lane, miss a lot of CS, and that's one of the things you can do. Now the only thing that's a problem with that, or could be a problem with that, is you cannot use too much time ganking top lane, because top lane in this current meta, in this current patch, I'd say, it's not that great. Like, it doesn't have too much impact. Now Nocturne does have an ultimate that allows him to have some impact in maybe mid lane, or maybe even bot lane if he roams there. But in general, top lane doesn't necessarily do too much. That's also why it's kind of been meta lately to play like Soraka top lane, which sounds a little bit troll, but it's actually very strong. But yeah, that aside, you need to remember that when you're ganking top lane, you need to do it when Dragon's down. Like, if you need to do it when you know the enemy jungler cannot pressure the Dragon. If you gank top lane, for example, if I see it and I'm jungling, I'm instantly running to Dragon if I see the enemy jungle top lane. Like, I'm doing that right away. Like, if it's 5 minutes in, I don't care. I'm just straight up doing Dragon, because there's nothing they can do to contest it. Like, for example, the enemy goes top lane into a matchup, and you can just see, okay, I can gank bot lane into doing a Dragon, or maybe I can even sneak a Dragon depending on the champion you're playing. So that's definitely something you have to think about. Now, for the mid lane, it's a Swain into a Aurelion Sol. Now, that matchup could be gankable. Aurelion Sol tends to just shove the wave and try to roam, so it doesn't really, like, usually that matchup I'm probably not going to get in position. I might, but it's going to be less likely just because of the way that lane's going to work. It's just going to be clear, and they just kind of back off or roam or whatever. And another matchup on bot lane is the Xayah Nautilus into the Jhin Pike. Now, Jin doesn't have any mobility, which is good, because that means I can quite easily try to land a stun on her, or on her, I mean him. He either has to flash it, and that's only gonna happen once, so bot lane ganks are also very, very good here. So my initial plan from all this information is I'm gonna just snowball top lane early on, before Dragon really spawns, get like 2-3 kills on him, just really camp him early game, get Nocturne to snowball that in my favor really, and then from that point onwards I go bot lane and I try to camp the bot lane and dive bot lane maybe, and then that's the game plan. So you really need to think about that, and you're gonna see me execute that game plan the best way. And if you don't have this game plan with an early game jungler like Elise, you're gonna have some problems. So always think about what matchup is gonna work, how it's gonna work if you're trying to play a gank heavy jungler. So all that being said, let's just now go for the game. So now you know what my game plan is gonna be for the game. I'm always thinking about it in loading screen and everything, where I wanna start, what I wanna do. So right here I'm warding this in case the Diana tries to cheese me. Like, Diana could quite easily do like a clear from her blue to her gromp to my red buff before I can get there, because she clears pretty quickly. So that's why I just warped that. She doesn't have a jump that goes over this wall, so she probably has to walk like that, or like from top side. But if she walks from top side, she's taking a little bit too much time, so I might still make it. I'm gonna clear quickly through my red buff as well. So anyway, you always want to place a ward to cover the side you're not clearing or not starting from. So whether that's top side, or if I'm starting red buff, then you can also place it in the bot river. This is a very key thing to do, because you want to know if the enemy mirror jungles you. So he goes from his red buff, for example, from here's red buff here to my blue buff there, whilst I start red buff. And if I were to like full clear, do this into a gromp, and I don't know this, then I can run in some trouble by not actually taking his top side, because he will have triple buffed me and maybe even stole the rest of my bot side camps, which puts me very far behind. So at the 40 to 50 second mark, you want to make sure you place a ward to cover that. You can also just place the ward straight on your buff. That's a very viable strategy as well, just to know if they do your buff or not. Because if the enemy is going to invade you, they're always really going to walk to your buff first. So that's just some stuff to keep in mind. Now, because of my game plan, what I said, I was going to camp top lane early. I'm starting blue buff. You can start wherever you want on Elise, it doesn't necessarily matter. But I'm starting blue buff just so I'm going to clear to top lane as fast as I can, to get that early, execute on those ganks, and then get some kills on Darius. Now, Elise is pretty quick at it. You just like use your spiderlings to... you can use them to tank, which you can see me doing sometimes, but you can also just tank instead, so your spiderlings are able to do more damage. Usually what I do is I tend to, if my W is up and active, I tend to keep my spiderlings alive a little bit longer, because they're going to do a bit more damage. And if it's down, I'm just going to try to use my spiderlings to tank, as you can see right there. In the active part, I really just tanked it myself, and then when it started to deactivate, I started to step back and let the aggro go to my spiderlings a little bit more. Now, you do have to take note that if you do that strategy and you let your little spiderlings tank, its aggro bar goes down, so you can't do it too much, because it would reset if you do it too much. Alright, there I just used my abilities on it to get my spiderlings back. I used my stun on it as well, because I might as well, it doesn't really matter. And as you can see right here, at 2 minutes 50-ish, I have a sweeper because of the reset that I did with 1:45 second mark-ish. I place the ward, get a sweeper, and now this sweeper allows me to know if the Darius has any vision. I was also paying attention to the lane a little bit, so he didn't really walk down, so I don't think he has vision anyway, but it's better to just sweep it to know for sure. So Darius right now is pushed up, and all I really have to do is just walk into the lane, as you can see. Nocturne goes aggressive, Darius uses his flash, uses his ghost, which is both of his summoners. I'm just going to hold on to my cocoon here. This is a very important thing to remember. A lot of people might just shoot the cocoon straight away, which is definitely not something you want to do, especially if you have red buff or Rylai's. There is no reason to shoot your cocoon. Just try to get in close, try to auto attack, try to slow him down first. People are gonna try to kite or like dodge your cocoon, so they're gonna walk back and forth in random spots to potentially dodge your cocoon, which also takes them time in trying to run away from you, which is what you can see Darius doing. He started to walk up and down like really nothing, but then at the moment he gets into a position like this, for example, close to the wall, he started to dodge the cocoon about here. But if he walks like this, there's no way he can dodge to that side. So if you throw your cocoon a little bit more towards the lane, there's no way it can miss. He already used his flash, so there's nothing he can do there. And he's pretty much just locked down at that point. And that's just a kill. So that's a very important thing to keep in mind on Elise. Try to keep your cocoon as long as possible. You don't just want to throw it willy-nilly, like that's not going to happen. Like if you do it from max range cocoons, like sure, they might look nice if you hit them, but realistically you're not going to hit them because they can just sidestep the cocoon at that point. You want to get in as close as possible, so it's as hard as possible for the enemy team to actually do something about it and dodge it. Now, as you can see, the game plan that I executed, I got the early kill on Darius. Darius is going to miss a wave. Darius doesn't really miss that much actually in this situation here. But yeah, well, that's mainly because the death timer is pretty low. Right here, I'm just walking to bot lane. I saw Diana taking top scuttle whilst I was walking about there. So instantly my next objective was to base and go to bot scuttle to make sure I get one of the scuttles. Definitely want to make sure I do that. And then in this situation here, the enemy bot lane was fighting. I'll actually go back just a bit to show. So right here, they are fighting. I'm walking towards bot scuttle right now, so this is a pretty ideal situation for me that the fight's going on, that the Jin's guiding up towards the river, because I can just now come in from behind. Also, one thing to note, in spider form you walk faster, so definitely if you want to get to a lane to counter gank or anything like that, walking your spider form is faster. And right there, just killed the Jin, which is nice. Got a good follow-up on that. So I easily got 2 ganks off in the early game. This is all just straight up because of a game plan and a little bit of luck in this situation. Now the only thing I should have probably done here is push this wave out, which was a slight mistake. Because now this wave kind of freezes in front here, whilst I could have easily just been able to push this and then the wave would have been lost for the Jin in the turret. So that's a little bit of my fault there. Just if you have the opportunity to push the wave, always do it, because you don't want to get your bot lane in an awkward freeze position. Now this might still push into the turret, but that's not ideal. Alright, here I'm just looking to clear my Gromp initially, just get some level 2 camps going. I cleared the Gromp and the Wolves already, so these are like the new level camps. They give more like experience and stuff. I haven't cleared Raptors or Crocs yet, so they aren't that important. They're still a level 1 camp, so I definitely gotta keep that in mind. But right now, another thing I can do, like at the earlier stages of the game, Diana really isn't able to do dragons easily. So I can still, at this point, afford to go top lane again to get another kill. Usually if you want to do this, you want to try to leave a pink ward or just any ward in general on the dragon, because then if the enemy jungler decides to go for it, they're going to have to either do it on your ward or on your pink ward, which if you're doing it, if like they have to clear your pink ward, they're probably not going to just straight up do it right after, because then the enemy knows that you're doing it, and doing it at a very low level like this might be easy for some champions, but most champions will get low and will get killed doing that. So as you can see, I'm ignoring my Raptor camp, I'm ignoring my Crux camp, really, because there's no point in me doing them yet at this point. It's better for me to just go for Darius again. Both camps are level 1, and I take quite a lot of time to actually kill those camps. Again, in this situation, you can see me holding my Cocoon. There's no reason for me to use it right now. Nocturne lands his Q, lands his Fear, and right now I'm just holding my Cocoon in this stage. Still holding it, like as you can see right there, and then in the end I shot it just in case he like tried to run, but he really didn't have anywhere to go. If I shoot my cocoon early and then he walks like past me or something, has ghost up for example, and he can still run away from the gank, which is not ideal. I get 2 plates there, look for the enemy's top side. See the Gromp spawn. Gromp is an easy camp to clear for Elise, so it's always a nice priority to get. Sadly the Darius tries to screw with me a little bit, and I still smite the Gromp, which is good. Kind of looking for maybe an opportunity on mid lane. I don't think really it's going to happen. As you can see, this guy's pretty low, so this guy could be a kill here. He still has his flash up, which I'm pretty sure Swain told me at that point. So I'm pinging it here to know if it's up. And then the Swain is just trying to bait us a little bit. Now there's multiple ways of doing a gank like this on mid lane. One of them is going into spider form and using your repel on the wave. This is mostly a better option if they don't have flash. If they have flash and you have your flash up, like in this case, the most likely scenario is just going to be a flash cocoon from your side, Because if you're gonna repel onto something and they are sending this far back into the wave, then they can still get enough distance between that before you even get your cocoon off. So I'm waiting for the Aurelian Soul to walk into a certain position so that I can actually get the thing off. Now Swain lands this here, which means he instantly flashes to that side, which is really, like, really good for me. So right now I'm just gonna flash cocoon. Hey, I'm just gonna flash cocoon him to make sure that I kill him as fast as possible there. I don't want to waste too much time. He could have, I could have probably gotten that off without flashing, but yeah, just pushing that as fast as possible, getting that kill, and then looking towards getting Scuttle again. And in this case, because I see the Diana going like mid lane like this, I saw the opportunity to gank this guy again because he's too far up. Like, he's really just pushing it in, which is not, like, it's not weird from a Darius. Like, it's a really aggressive lane. The lane's very, like, you either go for it or you're losing the lane anyway. So, but because I see Diana going mid lane and not being on Dragon, I can easily afford to do this gank one more time. And this is probably going to be the last time I'm going to be able to do this, so I will just go for it again. Right here, Nocturne has ultimate. I again hold my cocoon as long as possible, so before I get in range. He got feared, I land a free cocoon, and then he dies. That's a very, very important thing to remember with those cocoons. And yeah. Now from this point onward, my next goal is just going for this dragon, because dragons are just very, very important in this meta. At this point I will have enough money for my jungle items, so doing a dragon is going to be really quick and easy. You see, I'm just running down to dragon. I have 2 pink wards as well, which is going to be nice. I'm first off going to clear my blue and just get the Gromp to get back to a respawn again. And then right here I just start the dragon. As soon as you get your jungle item on Elise, doing a dragon is going to become very, very easy. You have a lot of damage to it. And right there is the first dragon. Now my next objective is to get bot lane ahead. As I mentioned earlier, it was my game plan all along. Now the top lane is 0-3. He's never realistically going to come back from that matchup because Nocturne already wins it. Especially once he gets his Sanguine Blade, which I don't think he's too far off that one right now. He already wins that, so I'm just going to go to bot lane and try to dive / gank bot lane as I mentioned earlier. So really sticking to a game plan there. Clear that. Just walk back a little bit, see where I can get into a position where I can get behind him. Might just use the plant, maybe look for a camp. I can dive mid lane here actually, yeah. This is pushed in. You have to remember on Elise that dives are very, very easy. The way you want to do the dives or set up the dives as Elise, I'm pretty sure I'll just do it right here so I can just show you in more of a slow-mo situation. So the ideal situation is, of course, you want to tank the aggro first, because with your repel from your spider form, you can easily drop aggro. So I stun him, I hit the Q. This means I should get turret aggro, didn't get turret aggro, interestingly enough. Swing gets hit there, I mean, he just really dies. But the ideal situation is you get turret aggro first. You can tank the turret all the way and then instantly press repel to be able to drop the aggro onto the other person, which is going to be the most ideal dive situation. Now this can be abused on bot lane, like it's especially good for ganking top laners or mid laners even, but mid lane is a little bit more difficult because it's so short. But it's pretty much a guaranteed kill when you dive something with Elise. It's really, really hard for the enemy to outplay that, or to even get a kill back. They might kill the enemy laner, but they're never really going to be able to kill you because of your repel. Alright there. Alright, I was planning to run to top lane again, but Nocturne already solo killed the Darius there. That's what that proves just how volatile that matchup was and how much those early ganks did for him. He's now solo winning that matchup, which means like that happening instantly tells me, okay, I don't have to go back to that lane again, and I can just focus on the rest of the map, which is really good. Like, that's something you've got to realize as well. You don't need to overdo it, especially on top lane. You don't want to be over ganking top lane because top lane is very much an island. Now this camp hasn't been cleared yet, so it's still on level 1, so it's not really that worth for me doing. I might even skip my crop camp for that reason, but I might just clear it to get the next experience spike from it. Yeah, okay, there you go. It dies very, very quickly, mainly because of the fact that I haven't cleared it yet, so... At this stage, Dragon's not up. If Darius walks into lane, I could still go for maybe another kill, but I think I'm just going to look for doing the Rift Herald. We just dive to Darius here, yeah, okay. And this is still viable simply because Dragon isn't up. If Dragon was up, you definitely don't want to be doing this. Also, bot lane like recently died, so yeah, just getting the first turret top lane right there and then picking up a Rift Herald off that. I can use this Rift Herald to pressure mid or bot down, which is very good. And Dragon should be respawning soon as well, so that's my next objective for sure. Now, usually, I'd say Nocturne can now snowball his lead, but I guess he just ulted mid lane and died, which is... Oh, he did actually get a kill. Okay, cool. I'm just making sure that I keep my camps going, and as soon as the dragon spawns, you see me be here with a pink ward, or control ward, I guess, and then do it again instantly. Making sure that the enemy doesn't have any freedom to do anything. And yeah, I placed a pink ward there. Now this means I can kind of just stand here and wait for the enemy to start auto-attacking that ward, then stun him and go for a one-shot. Did miss my stun sadly, but yeah. Right. Put the Aurelian Soul there. I mean, at this point, it's quite literally just you need to pressure the enemy down, take as many camps as possible. If you've built up a lead like I have, like Diana's still 3-0-3, which is pretty decent, but I've gotten more objectives, I've gotten more turret gold and all that kind of stuff, got more kills really as well. So I'm definitely in the lead. I have 2 dragons, so you need to press that lead. This is a lot of people, I see a lot of mistakes, especially from like Elise players or early game junglers. They will get a lead and then they don't pressure that lead. So they don't go into the enemy jungle and actually take the camps from a farming jungler. If you start taking the camps from the Diana, from a Graves, Karthus, whatever type of farming jungler it is, you need to start invading and taking their camps. There is absolutely no way they're going to be able to get into your jungle to take your camps because of the fact that you're just so far ahead. So if they risk that, they risk dying. But you can easily walk into their jungle, maybe sweep, maybe place some control wards down and actually take pressure off his camps, which means that he will not be able to get into a situation where he can farm back into the game. And especially if, for example, like you've played towards the topside map, like I have this game, I've played towards topside more because it's just harder. It's a harder snowball, and then I was there for the dragons. Make sure that you be there for the dragons, that they don't just do it. And then you can pressure the top side. There's nothing the enemy team can do. The Diana cannot walk into our top side anymore as soon as Nocturne has all this pressure. So you have to keep that in mind and be able to take in those camps. Now right there, use the Rift Herald mid to get some pressure in. I think I might actually die here. Yeah, I think I'm dead here. Okay. Well, it's a little bit out of position on that one, but yeah, what can you do? Just getting my buff camp, getting the next rotation of camps from this experience, just waiting it out a little bit. Dragons should be respawning soon-ish, so I'm definitely gonna be looking towards playing towards more to the bot side. Nocturne goes in, I hint, like he gets a kill, we let the stun on Darius, we can just start pushing now. That's a 4 kills for like 1, which is really good for us. And yeah, we just pressure it down. I mean, at this point, for Elise, you are either very far ahead or very snowballed and you're just going to be able to win, or at this point you're going to be pretty useless anyway because you don't skill that well. I mean, at this point in the game you can still be very, very useful, but it starts diminishing over time. And we overextended a little bit, which is a bit awkward. Dragons respawning quite soon, so they might actually be able to get this. But then I guess Nocturne comes in. This is what, like, this kind of is satisfying to see as a jungler, because this means that the ganks you did actually paid off very, very nicely. Nocturne at this point like has a Sanguine Blade, has a Dusk Blade as well. He's just going to be very strong. So right here, he's just going to be able to clean the fight by himself pretty much. Like he has so much damage in his Sanguine Blade as well as a spell shield that it's just a clean up for him, which is really, really good to see. And it's always satisfying as a jungler to see that the lane you pressure down or ganked for is actually like carrying / winning the game. I'm making sure that I still keep my farm going. At this point, Nocturne had the base. This is something you have to remember when it comes to like pressuring the map or farming, especially this stage of the game. Look at how many people you have on a map and look at how many of them still have the base. If the Nocturne, for example, isn't on the map, still has the base, you then definitely have to make sure that you just clear your camps as much as possible. And as soon as the Nocturne starts going back on the map, as you can see right here, I'm starting to go for vision. I'm starting to look for setting up Baron Vision right here. Now, Nocturne has a Sanguine Blade, which is an interesting thing to remember. It's easily... The first thing to remember is on Elise, you can solo Baron. The strategy is to let your Spiderlings tank so you don't get the damage debuff, and then your Spiderlings also don't get the damage debuff really, so you can burn the Baron down quite easily. This is easily done with Liandry's, and if you have Rylai's, it's going to be even faster. But Rylai's is an optional item, as I've explained. If you have Liandry's, you can just burn Baron down. Now the strategy for this is, you can see it here quickly before Nocturne hits it. The strategy is to walk. I'll show this. You can do the entire Baron like this, by the way. Just I haven't done this game, but I will explain it. It's a very strategy that you might want to practice first in your practice tool. So yeah. So the idea here is this: you first hit the Baron with your spells like that. Then you Q, so all the Spiderlings jump close to it, and then you walk to the side like this. So the Baron, for example, if he uses like AoEs or knockups or anything like that, it's going to be off to the side, which means it doesn't hit your Spiderlings, which means they don't die. So the only thing they can die is from auto attacks from Baron, which they die pretty slow that way. So you can tank the Baron with your Spiderlings for a while like that, and then as soon as they pretty much all died from just Baron auto attacks, you can then refresh them by using all your skills. Really, you kind of have to stun the Baron as well just to get an extra Spiderling like that. But as you can see, I'm standing off to the side. The Baron is just auto-attacking them regularly. And me standing off to the side like this means that AoE damage or AoE skills go in my direction instead of the direction of the Spiderlings. And as you can see, I don't really take any damage. Now Nocturne is going to show up, of course, but this is kind of the way to do it. It's a very quick thing. You might want to practice that. It's going to be doable. Also, if the Baron were to AoE down your Spiderlings, you instantly want to swap out of your form to make sure that your Spiderlings do not die to that AoE. And then the moment the AoE disappears, you then go back into your spider form after having cast your abilities to get your Spiderlings back a little bit more. And then that way you can tank it. But it's really an off to the side type of dance. As you can see, this type of ability, you want to avoid your Spiderlings getting hit by that. Now Nocturne stands a little bit too close to the left, so your Spiderlings still get hit by that, and still, like, some of them still die. But if you stand where I stand in this entire time and your Spiderlings are on the other side, same thing kind of applies if you do it from right to left. And this AoE, for example, is the AoE you want to then switch back to human form for, because then that is the way to make your Spiderlings survive that one. And you can really just stall out the Baron if you kite it to the AoE aggro from the Baron to yourself on the side. It's something to remember. It's something I've seen. I've played against, I don't know what his name was, but there was a guy in E West in Challenger that just did that against me, and I was like, what just happened? Elise soloed Baron at like 22 minutes in game. So that's definitely something you should want to try, like, just from the way I've explained it. I might be able to make a video on it if you guys want to see it, just me doing that with Elise. It's quite difficult and takes some practice, but it's a very effective strategy because it's also done pretty quickly. Yeah, just let me know if that's a thing. Alright, here, we don't really, like, at this point, I'm just looking to get my red buff, getting some pressure, and then it's already really over from here. Elise is a very early game based champion, so if you did the early game properly, followed your game plan, made a good game plan, and yeah, that's pretty much it for Elise. There's really nothing else that could be said. Like, team fighting wise, you kind of just want to peel back for your team. Make sure that you stand next to the other carry to make sure you can stun enemy units or enemy champions and one-shot people that try to go for those champions. It's really how you want to play team fights. So apart from that, it's pretty much how you play Elise. If you guys have enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the thumbs up button. If you guys want to see other champions, put those in the description below. Any champion you want to see, I mean, I still have quite a lot of champions to go this season anyway, so might as well, if you want to see something sooner, suggest it. And yeah, if you guys have enjoyed it, subscribe as well, and see you guys in the next video. Bye!